Hey, everybody. Good
Batten
morning.
down the hatches.
There's not a
down
gas
the hatches, man. They're knocking on the door. Who's knocking at the door? Somebody's knocking at the door.
Somebody's knocking at the door.
Great
Somebody's
Gilbert
ringing
O'Sullivan.
the bell.
Hey, that was a great 70s classic. Hey, Rob Brown in Memphis, Brendan Martin in Marion County, Florida, in Cowboy Country. Got a lot to cover today. SEC basketball. How hot is it? Well, look at these. If you start looking at the standings and you look at the national rankings, it's proving the SEC right now is strong. Look at those quad one wins. Big games. Look, Ron Slay was supposed to be on with us, SEC Network. He's had a little travel issue coming back from the Auburn game last night. He'll reschedule. But we got Jason Caldwell, AU Undercover, Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, Vince Ferrara from the Sports Animal in Knoxville. So, Brendan, a lot to cover. We were looking at, what's trending in sports this morning. Thank you, because there's a lot. Definitely SEC basketball. The SEC officials are going to be in charge of the national championship game Monday night at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Some people don't like that. Well, there's no SEC team involved in it, so they probably like that, but I'm not sure the TV audience is going to like that.
This is how deep the rivalry goes, right? It's like we even get pissed about the the wrong officials in the wrong place. But, I guess this is it's conspiracy theory. I think the internet's having fun with it. Maybe it's the hangover of football season going away, possibly. Or maybe it's just everyone's excited. I know, Rob, you and I have talked. It's hard. You and I are not the type of people to blame an official for an outcome of a game.
Nope.
We always say that's kind of weak. But have you felt like this year's been a little different, that there has been, particularly in the SEC, has there been controversy that you think is viable to have this discussion?
There has been. I one time made a comment 31 years ago at a luncheon for the quarterback club in Memphis. I said, we've got to get better officials in better shape. The game is getting faster and they've got to keep up with it. We can't have a bunch of old fat guys on the field officiating. Sure enough, I didn't realize he was in the room, the commissioner of officials for Conference USA was sitting 3 tables over. And I said, I stand by my comments. And he started laughing. He said, "You're right." He goes, we got to keep up with the game. But I love to get Steve Shaw on here, who's coordinator of NCAA officials, lives in Birmingham, used to be with the SEC, and he's a good man. I respect the hell out of him. It's cool. He is really busy right now, but I think what happens, I live like you do, in the mindset, football is a 60-minute game plus overtime possible. You got to take care of it and don't let the officials determine the outcome. But we do see, in my opinion, activist officials late in the season when a conference is trying to get teams into the playoff, what have you. I just think it happens. I do. But I think also targeting, I don't think there were as many targeting calls this past year.
Well, I don't know if that. I don't know statistically what it was, but I can tell you targeting didn't get easier to understand. Certainly, we saw that asserted in the Texas game. In the playoff, playoff game. I just feel like it's more confusing than ever, and I think nobody knows how to coach for it, right? Which is really important, and I think that's notable for people to understand that you can't. You really can't coach and teach target, like how not to target, because there's no distinct black and white way of this, defining what that means. And I guess that's where you can dig into the conspiracy theory stuff of the world, where you can be like, well, do they really want it that way? Do they really just need it because they like that, area of gray? I don't know. I think it is good to protect the player, of course, but it's just such a hard, it's almost like every other play you could call targeting, or at least a pass play. If there's any sort of notable contact, it just seems like, when we see it textbook right in front of our face and then it's not called, like, then you're like, okay, where are we at with this?
I heard a stat from Steve Shaw last year. There was one targeting call for every 5.2 games. But I think in the SEC, we tend to think there's a lot more targeting calls because the SEC is such a physical, violent league. Not that the rest of football is not, but we become myopically focused on this league alone. Moving on, the officials, though, going forward, football, basketball, they're always going to be a part of the game.
Yeah.
Can't do it without them.
No.
And if your team starts to use as a crutch that the officials screwed us, you're not going to win a lot of games. You just can't allow it, but it does get in there.
Yeah.
It's crazy how many people will talk days later how that call screwed them out of a game. Well, they've never gone back retroactively and changed the outcome of a game because the fans were mad.
Yeah. Well, I think it makes sense in this particular instance to me that you would have an officiating crew that doesn't have any ties to a conference. So why not take the SEC officials to do this game? Because you don't have an SEC team in the championship. It seems to make sense. I don't know why you'd have one or the other. You know what I mean? So I guess to me, it makes sense. I think if you get the best of the best in the SEC as far as officiating, I got to think you're going to have the best officials around because, they see a higher level, higher caliber of football. Things are faster. And I think it's a harder game to officiate. So it'll be interesting to see. Rob, basketball, we had a lot of games last night. Run the scores up here of what we saw down here at the bottom. Auburn bested Mississippi State. Ole Miss beat up on Alabama 74-64. Kentucky beats A&M big, and then Florida loses that nail biter by 1 point. And same with LSU and Arkansas. What did you get to watch any of those games, Rob? You watch? I watched most of them. Specifically, Florida LSU. What do you think? I think you're going to dump one of those. But God, is now Missouri good? Because what are they, 4-0 in the SEC?
Yeah, I think they're 3-0 or 4-0. So in Missouri, you remember just a couple of years ago they were 0-18 in the SEC. I mean that's hard to do.
Yeah.
If as bad as Vanderbilt's been in football, they've only been winless in the conference one time.
Yeah.
And that's that's hard to do. But
hey, speaking of Auburn, let's bring in Jason Caldwell of Auburn Undercover and talk to him about the game last night. Hey, Jason, welcome to the program.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Jason, man, let me just run something by you to put things in perspective because few people grasp history like you do. Here's Auburn number 1 right now. Number 2 is Iowa State. Auburn's already played them and beat them. Number 3 is Duke. Auburn played at Cameron Indoor, lost 84-78. Alabama's number 4. Auburn will play them. Florida's number 5. Auburn will play them. Tennessee's number 6. Auburn will play them. Marquette, number 7. Might play them in the NCAA tournament, but they're good. Kentucky's number 8. We'll play them. Number 9, Kansas. And number 10, Houston. Number 11, Texas A&M. Number 12, Mississippi State. Holy cow. What say you about this SEC basketball and just the strength of schedule? Bruce Pearl is I respect that. Like it says in the Bible, man, iron sharpens iron. I got a T-shirt that says it. It absolutely is a fact. But one of the best out there ever, Jason Caldwell, AU Undercover. You were there last night. What are your takeaways?
It's just, I don't know. And when you think about this team to do what they did without Janai Broome, it's pretty remarkable. Mississippi State's a good basketball team, and that's a team that's going to win a bunch of games, and that's the team that's going to be in the NCAA tournament. It shows you, first of all, playing at home is important, but it's not the be-all, end-all, as we found out last night. You guys were talking about Missouri going to Florida and winning. They hit a bunch of shots. When that happens, you're going to have a chance to win. Ole Miss goes to Tuscaloosa doesn't hit a bunch of shots, but they play really good defense and they win. We talked about it's going to be hard to go on the road and win. But it's hard to win anywhere. I mean, Auburn, Mississippi State beat South Carolina by 35 just a couple of days ago. Auburn had to hold on to beat South Carolina over the weekend on the road. It's going to be hard. And I laughed because I was watching some of Baylor and Arizona last night, and there was a Big 12 commercial that was talking about the best basketball league in the country. And I'm like, no, it's not. It might have been 2 years ago, and maybe last year it probably still was. It's not this year, and it's not close. I saw last night, Ohio State pushed Wisconsin to the brink at Wisconsin, and that's a team that Auburn could beat by 50. No, it was an impressive game. Shows you the depth of this team. Now you got to turn around again. Saturday really hard. Going to Athens. He's playing really good at home. You'll have to play good again. But that's just life in this league.
Jason, was it 2 years ago that Missouri was 0-18 in the SEC?
Last year.
It was last year.
I think they had lost because the Auburn loss was 19 straight.
Yeah.
So when they lost to Auburn to open the season this year, that was 19 straight conference games they had lost. Because 2 years ago, they went to the NCAA tournament, were pretty good.
Yeah.
This year just fell apart. And then, and now you look at them this year, they're 3-1, playing well.
Chaney Johnson, Chad Baker Mazzara, that guy from New Jersey, Tahad Pettiford. I mean, freshman guards. Who would you compare him to? Because Bruce Pearl's brought in some really big-time talent, but Pettiford, I can't put him in a box yet. Talk about what he means to this team, and he shows up in the big games, which they're all big.
Yeah, I think as far as talent goes, I think he's the most talented guy on this team in terms of talent. Now, he's not the best player right now, but I think he's the most talented guy. Ja'Kai Howard is the most physically talented, but I think Tahad is the most talented basketball player on the roster. I think it's been great for him that he doesn't have to play 37 minutes a game. Yeah. I think that's the thing that is really key for him and for this team. And it's probably different, because we saw, a few years back, you saw, freshmen playing for these teams and for Bruce's teams, and they had their moments where they're really good. But this allows Tahad to come in and be a spark plug, and I think that's great for him at the moment. And I think Bruce hit on something last night too. You mentioned Chaney and you mentioned Dylan. Dylan is not a scorer. He's really not a huge rebounder either, but he's a really good defender. Yeah, not just block shots, but he's a really good defender on hedging out on screens and doing things. I think you saw last night that's a really good defensive lineup that Auburn put on the court, and it showed up early against Mississippi State. Somebody asked me recently, how does he do it? And it's one of the keys. He makes guys understand when you come into Auburn that you're going to play defense and you're not going to play 40 minutes. And it's all because the team and what you bring as the sum of parts. And we saw that again last night. Chaney Johnson, okay, it's your time to step up. You're going to get some more minutes. Here you go. And Tahad has bought into that, and, they have fun with it.
And I think, too, when you look in the NCAA tournament where teams run into roadblocks as they play those teams like a St. Peter's, Marquette, Creighton, that have been together for 3 or 4 years, and they know each other. Well, this Auburn team has 10 seniors. I've never seen that ever. I don't remember a team, but you're right. You buy into the team concept. Another player, you mentioned Dylan Cardwell. This is his 5th year there. You got a roster full of guys that love being there. That you just can't put a price tag. But I agree with you. Bruce Pearl gets those guys to play at the max. Every minute counts. You don't see guys, even with a big lead, they're still diving for loose balls. I'll think about you got to go to Georgia Saturday. Mike White's got them ranked for the first time since 2011. that's never, even when Georgia's been struggling recently, Auburn's had a lot of 1 and 2 point wins over there. Talk about this matchup and the matchups.
Yeah, I mean they've got, they got excitement. They're selling tickets, and there'll be a bunch of Auburn folks there because they bought tickets early before this Georgia team started playing really well.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look and it's a talented roster. They've got some players that can make plays, and you start looking at them, and going on the road is never easy. And so that's the thing you look at. You go, obviously for them, they'll go to Tennessee tonight. That'll be an interesting thing for them to kind of figure out. Okay, do they get knocked down a peg, or do they go play really well at Tennessee and have even more confidence? I mean, Tennessee for them, it's a big game because you need to take care of the home court as much as you can. But Asa Newell is a guy that's he's a big time player for Georgia. When you look at what they do, I mean, he's 6'11" freshman. This is a big athletic guy from Montverde Academy who's one of the top basketball. But he's 15 points and 6 rebounds a game. But they're deep too. You look at their minutes, and he plays the most minutes on this team. Well, second most minutes. Silas Demery is a guy that plays 29 minutes. They don't have anybody that plays over 30 minutes. So they play a bunch of guys, and they're long and big, and that's going to be the thing for Auburn. If you don't have Janai Broome back Saturday, I mean, he's walking around, still had a boot on. Okay. It'd be pretty quick to come back because you have a full week off after Saturday before you play Tennessee. But Georgia's long, and Auburn is not a big team when you take him out of the lineup. They didn't have anybody over 6'7" after him last night, other than Dylan Cardwell. So, can you make shots like they did last night? If Auburn shoots the ball like they did last night, it won't matter. Because anybody that shoots the ball like that, gets good shots, makes shots, is tough to beat.
What is the biggest threat, you think, to this Auburn team? What kind of teams on the schedule? And you look down the road, it's a gauntlet. But we talked about Georgia.
Size.
It's size. Okay.
Size rebounding. And you look and Georgia is one of those teams. Texas A&M is one of those teams that's physical. And then, Missouri was early. And caught them at home was big, but I think size, rebounding, physicality, I think that's the one. And so you look at Florida as the obvious one. They're the number 1 rebounding team in the country, and Missouri was able to match up with them, but Missouri was unconscious for the first 10 minutes of that game and gave themselves a cushion that they held on to at the end. But Georgia's long enough to give you problems, and that's it. You look, even last night, as well as Auburn played, they didn't rebound exceptionally well. I don't know what the totals wound up being, but I know for a while last night I looked, and Auburn had, I think, 24 rebounds, and 18 of them had come from, Chaney had 8, and then Miles Kelly had 10 of them. So you had 6 rebounds from the entire rest of the team. Dillon ended up with 5, and so they ended up rebounding a little bit better. But to me, that's the thing I look at and going, can you keep from getting – we saw what South Carolina did. That was the key, pound the offensive glass. And so how well can Auburn rebound the basketball and keep people from getting second, third chances is probably the ultimate key for me.
I mean, the good thing, though, is that they recognize that. And if you don't want to wait until it's too late. But that's one thing Pearl and that staff do is they look at a win 88-66 over Mississippi State, but they're poking holes in there and finding things that they can do better. And I always notice coaches, whatever the sport, that do that, they consistently win. I got to ask you now, football-wise, where Auburn is. You got the February signing date coming up, which is a kind of a non-event. But you think Auburn grabs anybody else out of the high school recruiting ranks? And then portal-wise, talk about this group that Auburn – first off, the guys Auburn lost. And I think I talked to Bill and Dan yesterday on the afternoon show in Auburn.
Yeah.
I called in and, Walker White jumps out. You don't want to lose any of them. I don't wish them bad. Antonio Kite was let go, but the guys that left and then the guys that are coming in, kind of health check on Auburn football.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a single guy that left that you were counting on to be starter or heavy contributor. I don't think Walker White was going to be in that mix. Maybe down the road he would have been, and of course you don't want to lose a guy like that.
No,
I don't think he would have been in the mix right now. Other than that, I mean, Keontae Scott obviously wasn't going to be in the mix for this team. He wasn't at the end of the year last year.
Yeah.
I don't know who else that comes to mind for me that would have been a solid contributor that you lost in terms of transfers. They were able to keep pretty much everybody they wanted to keep. And that's a great starting point to have. And now you add in a bunch of guys, all but Ashton Daniels, the quarterback from Stanford. He's the only transfer that is not scheduled to be on campus. So they started classes Monday. And then from the high school ranks, Derek and Eric Smith, the brothers from Southside Selma, Kel Ellis, and then the offensive lineman from Savannah. That's the only 4 high school kids that aren't on campus. So you've got almost the entire group. So there's almost 40 guys between your transfers and your high school that'll be on campus for the spring to add to what you're returning. So you're going to be almost at full strength for spring practice. And that's a good place to be.
Going back to December of 22 when Hugh Freeze was introduced as Auburn's new football coach. Talk about the roster then and the roster at 8:28 a.m. because we know things are very fluid with the portal and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's not even remotely the same thing.
Yeah.
It was the worst Auburn roster of my lifetime when he took over.
Yeah.
That was in the middle of getting ready for his signing day, all those things. But you're right at the finish line almost of a signing day at that time.
Yeah.
It was the single worst roster that Auburn's had in my lifetime. And there were some teams in the 70s that weren't great, but they still had some pretty good players.
Yeah.
But compared to what you're up against now in this league, there was further to go than any Auburn team that I've seen. So, and it started on offensive line. I mean, it's a completely different group on the offensive line. The only guys that are still here are Tate Johnson, Jeremiah Wright. That's it. That's the only 2 offensive linemen still here. Then it's less than 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And so now you've got a group where you have 4 to 5 legitimate offensive tackles. We've been used to Auburn teams that had 4 to 5 legitimate offensive linemen, period.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, I hope nobody gets hurt. And
yeah.
See what happens. Now you're looking at having guys that have starting experience that will be your reserves in key spots. So that's the starting point. Wide receiver room should be as good as any room in this league and potentially any room in the country as you continue to develop. Defensively, the secondary is probably as talented a group as Auburn's had in a long time.
Yeah.
Up front, you got some questions, not talent, but how ready are guys and how beneficial is the spring going to be for them? But talented, they're there, and so I think it's going to be a really fun spring to see a bunch of young guys and a bunch of newcomers and see how they kind of fit in.
Jackson Arnold grew up in Atlanta. Said he grew up knowing Auburn and Georgia fans. I guess going into his junior season, his dad must have got transferred out to Dallas-Fort Worth area, and so he played 2 years. He came out number 4 quarterback in America, number 10 overall player, highest rated offensive recruit in Oklahoma history, highest ever. Then you look what happened this year. I don't think you can fairly judge him by all the offensive linemen left. 6 wide receivers get hurt. And the offensive line that they did have surrendered 46 sacks. Just lastly, just leave us with your impressions of him and then let people know how they can follow you. And as always, we can't thank you enough for the man from the marble capital of the world, Sylacauga, Alabama. You're the best.
Yeah, no, I mean, looking, that's where it starts with for me, because people talk about Auburn's offensive line and they go, man, Auburn's offensive line, look what they did. Auburn allowed 27 sacks. And you go, man, that's not great. Oklahoma allowed 50.
Oh, wow.
50 sacks, which is remarkable. And so then you look at it and go, okay, I mean, you didn't have a whole lot of weapons, but, how'd you respond? How'd you, Oklahoma, and you go, they didn't throw it very well. Like I said, no wide receivers and a bunch of sacks. They'll do that pretty quickly. And so you start to go, all right, where do you fit? How does that work? They threw roughly the same amount of passes that Auburn did. I think there were 4 different, and they played an extra game.
Yeah,
but twice as many sacks. And so you start looking at it going, that's a tough road to be in. They didn't turn it over a bunch. His numbers are fairly good combined for 2 years. His passing totals over 2 years about equal to what Peyton Thorne did this season. I think it's like 17 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, something like that. So you think more weapons, better offensive line group. I think it's a good fit. And this is a talented guy. And we've seen talented guys with a fresh start and talent around them. The light bulb goes off. And if you're Auburn, that's what you're hoping for.
And you got to think if it's Will Redmond, Hugh Freeze, whoever, because sadly we lost the glue in Chet Williams. I mean, he was just something special, and rest in peace, Chet. But there's a culture there of keeping those guys there. And I remember talking to Jarquez Hunter after the La Monroe game for about 10 minutes. My wife and I were talking to him. And I just said, you are the cornerstone of what, in this case, an Auburn man is, whatever. He stayed. He could have left a million times. Tons of respect for him. And there's just a lot of guys that I think want to be there. And you're starting to see it at other schools too, where it's campus culture coaching now, I think, more than ever. But
yeah, I mean, look at Ohio State and Notre Dame. They're schools that went to the portal and got key pieces.
Correct.
But also schools that have built rosters in key spots that are guys. I mean, look at Jack Campbell. Look at these guys on that Ohio State. Look at Notre Dame's secondary group.
Yes.
Part and look at the lines of scrimmage. And those are guys that have been there for 3, 4, 5 years. That's what, to me, what you have to get to. And I thought, continuing to build, you bring guys back, you keep guys, add key pieces from the portal, but continue to recruit high school. To me, that's how you establish the culture, but it's also how you build a program that is sustainable and where you can go, hey, look, okay, next year let's plug in guys and we can keep doing the same thing instead of, we got to overhaul the roster again and hope you hit. That's what you try to avoid a little bit.
Yeah. What Kirby's doing, what Dabo Sweeney's doing, he's going in a little bit. Ellis Johnson talked about that Monday with us. But I think more than ever that GM is generally managing everything around him. Maybe these coaches, and I think they can start coaching again. But Jason, always love having you on here. We'll do it again next week. And it's there's so much happening right now, but I think the takeaway is you're keeping the guys that you want to keep, and that's the most important part. Guys have always transferred, but that's a takeaway from it. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.
You bet. All right, man. Brendan, listening to what Jason said, you take a look down at Florida with Billy Napier. The Gators and Dudley Dawson will be on in just a minute. He's working with his Yeti Blue. But the Gators kept most of the people they wanted, but they did lose a few key players. But the culture, just quickly tell me this. You know that Gator program and your dad better than anybody. They kept pretty much everyone they wanted on that roster. But did anybody in the country close stronger in recruiting than the boys of old Florida?
Yeah, they certainly had a nice run at the end.
Hell yeah, they did.
Top 10, but Rob, that's normal. I mean, it's not. Again, it's recruiting. It's a transfer portal. It's all these different things anymore. But excuse me. But I think Billy kept the culture intact. His culture, the culture he created. I don't know if that's Gator culture, but I think Billy has put his take on things, and everyone's excited about Billy Napier. I talked about this last night. I said, well, I'm still a wait and see on Billy Napier because in the offseason he's making moves sometimes that are really some of the reasons why I get frustrated with him to begin with, because and I don't know him, so I'm not like knocking his personality or anything like that. I'm just saying it seems like he likes to have a little bit more control of what is done on every aspect. And I know you're the head ball coach, and I get it, but here we are. We have no offensive coordinator. I don't know. And we talked about this last night in the Buddy Martin show. It's just, when you're at the SEC team and you have endless resources, you can have anything you want. And Billy asked for it, got the largest coaching staff in history when he started at Florida. He's gotten everything he's wanted from a box full of analysts and, everything under the sun as far as facilities, all the things and the fan base that shows up when you play Sisters of the Blind and Poor at noon, and you still have 90,000 Gators in the stadium. So you have all of the components. Complain about the fishbowl, sure, whatever, but that's Florida. That's playing in Florida. That's playing in the SEC. That's coaching for Bama. That's coaching for Auburn. That's anything else. But I think what his problem is going to be the same as everybody else's problem is that it is going to be almost a hard reset every year on a lot of different players and some coaches and a lot of different aspects, because it is a much faster and quicker situation as far as how players are going and coming and recruiting and 18-year-old kids changing their minds, showing up in Lamborghinis and Hellcats and everything else under the sun. I just think that every season you're going to have this hard reset. Okay, what are we going to do now? We're going to lose a third of our team or whatever, based upon our record from last year. So yes, I'm still a sort of a wait and see, because I think one of the things that you can control moreover now is your coaching staff. And we talked about this last night. Again, I hate to reference, we had a great show last night with Lauren Meadows on the Buddy Martin show. You can check it out on this channel. But we're just talking about, what's happening, what's happening right now as far as the SEC is concerned. How is the SEC going to sort of save itself, and not rest on its laurels of the past, and how are these teams going to adapt each and every year, because we're going to be hitting that sort of that hard reset until we get some more guidelines in places and how guys can be shuffled around.
Yeah, and hard reset. The coaches that you've got, all these analysts and all, their real job is player retention.
Right.
And I would say it, but I know it's not, but it almost looks like a Notre Dame Letterman jacket that you're wearing there, Brendan. That's a good looking jacket.
Well, you see this jacket? Can you see this jacket? You see where it's from?
It says it's a bowl game.
No, it'd be a Super Bowl game.
Super Bowl. Wow.
You might have heard of that. Let's see.
Yeah. Where'd you get that?
Oh, just, stuff that's rumbling around in the closets around the Martin household, my friend.
God.
You have no idea. My house is a museum of sports memorabilia.
I had a collection of hoodies as a kid.
This is from Super Bowl. I can't see it. XXVI. Let's see. I think that's CBS 26. Sports. 26. Buddy got this when he was producing with Terry Bradshaw on CBS NFL Today.
Emmy Award winning. That's right.
And Emmy Award winning. Yes.
Is Dudley on board yet?
No.
Okay. He's working on getting that in there. And Vince Ferrara will join us in just a minute. Let me say something about Winter Timber Outdoors, folks. And we had the QR code up there a minute ago. Winter Timber Outdoors, Athens, Alabama. They're growing all over the Southeastern Conference. Take a picture of that QR code with your phone. You see what's happening there. They have all the shooting sports covered, over 2,000 shotguns, rifles, and handguns in the store. And the St. Nick's knives. If you like knives, collect knives, they have a massive collection. Deer stands, all the stuff for your food plots, and the gear. They're a big Sitka dealer. Higdon. They've got Dixie decoys, the gear, and it looks great. They've got tops, bottoms, jackets, gloves, hats, everything. Winter Timber Outdoors. Ammunition. They've got the Migra loads. I have not used a duck load that will fold a duck like a napkin, like the Migra 2.4 stack, 3-inch, 1525 FPS. Get them at Winter Timber Outdoors. And folks, you're driving around, need to go look at getting a new truck, car, SUV. Hey man, LandersFordMemphis.com, #1 Ford dealership in the Mid-South for a lot of reasons, starting with the service department. 7 a.m., 7 p.m., Monday through Saturday. They will pick you up, take you back and forth when your vehicle is being serviced. Brad Bellamy's the general manager out there. They got a great team. And also Kenny Myers. Those of you that know Kenny Myers, he's one of the best guys you'll ever meet. He's also been in the car, truck, SUV business for 41 years. He started when he was a youngster. He's still a youngster. Hey, Landers Ford, let them know you heard about it on SEC Sidelines, $500 off. And there's already a lot of big rebates and discounts on the cars, trucks, and SUVs out there. Hey, if you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, you probably paid too much. And Brendan, I was out at Hewlett and Dunn yesterday. I got to go back next week to take them some venison tamales, but I'm going to look at some boots and hats and stuff like that. They've got a massive collection. And folks, Christmas has come and gone, but they've got a 50% off rack out there. Great looking stuff. The Duck Camp, the Filson, the Barber, the Duck Head, the Devil Dog jeans. They got everything. It looks great. The folks out there, Raven, talked to her yesterday, got some cool stuff for my wife, Audrey. Man, Ariat's got some great vests out there in the boot collection, the belts. Man, I got a STS leather jacket made out of cowhide. It is really cool. They've got so much good looking stuff. When you go in there, it'll blow your mind. Hewlett and Dunn in Collierville in Shelby County, but they will deliver anywhere. HewlettandDunn.com. They are great people. Charles Hall, JM, Raven, the whole staff out there. And look, Squidward's out there, Eli. And now we've got Vince Ferrara from Tampa. He's up in the sports animal in Knoxville. And
he's an animal.
He is the sports animal. And I tell you what, Tennessee right now, this is a hell of a run for the Vols. Football, basketball. They are the reigning, you don't say defending national champions. They are the national champions, the reigning national champions in baseball. And Vince been up since probably 4 o'clock this morning. He goes 5 to 8, 6 to 9 his time on a morning sports show.
It's rock star.
Yeah, he is. Vince, look, man, I saw your text.
I feel like if you're in a band, you'd be a drummer.
Yeah. John Bonham, move aside. How are you?
I'm good, guys. Yeah, drums would be the only thing I could kind of like half comprehend and just put some beats together and fake it till you make it, that type of thing.
You know what I heard a music guy say yesterday? Music's just math. I'm like, really?
Yeah, it is just math, but I don't play by ear, but I have my music socks on.
There you go. There you go. Vince, have at it, man. There's a lot to cover with Tennessee. The portal for Tennessee, you talked about that. Basketball. So, man, I'm putting the ball in your hands. Get us in the end zone.
Yeah. The portal is interesting because, as Dudley knows, Arkansas is one of those high volume portal teams. Sometimes it's by necessity where a lot of guys hit the portal right on cue. There he is. And so you have to bring in a lot of guys because you're losing a lot of guys. Some programs do it because they can get guys. So I think they invite players to kind of move on so they can upgrade.
But show me the door.
Yeah, exactly.
So where should I sit down?
There's future endeavoring in college athletics. There's no doubt about it. So, but Tennessee has not been a high volume portal team to this point under Josh Heupel. They've been among the lowest in players leaving and in players coming in. This year, though, there's a gap there. Tennessee has only brought in 2 players in the portal so far. Interior offensive lineman from Arizona and Wendell Moy, and then Amari Jefferson, who was a 4-star who went to Alabama but was injured and never got on the field for Kalen DeBoer in his first year. But it came down to Tennessee, Alabama for him. He wanted to play for Nick Saban. That didn't play out. And so he came back to Tennessee. He was a longtime Tennessee baseball commit, Amari Jefferson. So he was a 4-star. So Tennessee needed wide receivers because they had 5 wide receivers hit the portal. And what's interesting too is because Tennessee is not a big portal numbers coming in team, they need to hit on their guys.
Yeah.
So this past year, they hit on some guys, namely Jermod McCoy. He was really their biggest hit. They got a couple of starters as well from the portal in addition to that. And one of them was Lance Hurd, the offensive tackle from LSU.
Yeah.
But I don't think he had a great year. I think there was more expected. He was a former 5-star.
Yes.
And then they got a tight end starter in Miles Kitzelman from Alabama as well that really worked out for them. So other rotational guys, but Tennessee has to hit on a bigger percentage of them, but they also need to get more because they've had 15 leave. So right now, Tennessee is low in those portal rankings right now. I don't know if they can add anyone that's left because most of the guys are committed.
Yeah.
But it's been tough sledding in the portal so far. And, they're going to have to, if they don't get somebody from Ohio State or Penn or Notre Dame during their window, it might have to go to the spring for Tennessee to get to where they need to be in the portal.
Going back old school, spring tryouts will prove a lot, and then people will go and have another opportunity to go shopping. Then Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net. Look, man, got the Yeti blue and the headsets. And I watched Arkansas play last night. I remember John Calipari's first 4 years in Memphis. People were so frustrated. Oh, when's it going to happen? And then it started happening. And when John Calipari left after a 9-year run at Memphis, people were devastated. And there's still a lot of people that are bitter that he left. But, they're 0-4 right now. Completely new roster. Give us a health checkup on the Hogs because I think the wins are going to start coming, but that program way better than I do.
Well, the patient is in critical condition right now. They're 0-4, and there's a segment of the fan base that's ready to run him out of town already. Obviously they have not played up to their capabilities. They have a lot of talent on this team, but the way it was constructed, it has not been put together well to play well together, and that's a big deal. My good friend up there, Vince, he sees Rick Barnes doing this all the time. He puts good combinations together. Sometimes you have too many Chiefs and not enough Indians, and that's one of the cases here. They don't shoot well from the outside. As a former Eddie Sutton and Nolan Richardson disciple who played 2 different types of defenses, these guys really don't put forth the effort that they need to on the defensive end. The SEC play-by-play guy and analysts are looking at it and calling them out, and they should. That's just the way it is right now. I think he's a very, very good Hall of Fame coach. He's done great things over the years, but it's not working these first few games and in the SEC play. And now you go to Missouri. Hey, what'd they do last night? Go down to Florida and win. So it doesn't get any easier in this league.
No, it doesn't, Dudley. And you think about all the hype that comes with John Calipari. I mean, that's just what he does. He gets people really jacked up. Where do you see Arkansas? What are the strengths of this team that you've seen so far?
Well, I do think that Boogie Flan, the young point guard from New York City, has been a really good player for them. As you see mock drafts, he's going to be number 20 and all that. So we're probably only going to see him for 1 year. Jonas Adu, who they thought would be a really good player for them, I guess has decided he's a 3-point shooter and really is not getting it done down in the lane like he needs to. Duthero has been, overall probably their best player. He's also, apparently going to be a first-round draft pick. But for the rest of them, including Nellie Davis was a phenomenal basketball player before he got here. He's in a rut right now. He's not shooting the ball well. He looks like he's got the yips a little bit. Now, the first half last night, he scores 11 points. Looks pretty good. Doesn't get it done in the second half last night. So it's just been I don't want to say a combination of errors, but it has not worked out well at all. And they thought they were getting a godsend and with all the rankings, and it was going to be great. And so far, it's not been that. And I keep getting asked questions about baseball now.
Well, yeah, and baseball, Vince, golly, Arkansas starting off 0-4. They'll start winning, but yeah, this league is so good in everything. But sticking on it with basketball, and Dudley just mentioned Missouri. They lose their first game. I think they've won 3 in a row. Look at the top 12, top 15 rankings. Tennessee was 1. They fell to 6. That loss at Florida, I don't think anybody saw that one coming. Rick Barnes every year has Tennessee in the mix. So what's different about this team than the previous 5?
Well, I think they're still trying to, mix in those new pieces and figure it out. It looked like they had done so ahead of schedule, and then that Florida game happened, and then really just one game since then, since that 30-point blowout at Florida, and that was a Texas game, and they found a different way to win without Chaz Lanier going off and being their leading scorer. Chaz Lanier struggled in the 2 games last week, so I think the adjustment to the Southeastern Conference, especially on the road, I think that's kind of a little bump in the road for him. He's coachable. So, he was the SEC's leading scorer until not that long ago. So I think he'll figure it out because he's willing to learn, but it's got to be a different pace. Dudley, you mentioned the announcers. It was Jimmy Dykes, an Arkansas guy, who was calling out Chaz Lanier during the Florida game and saying, hey, sometimes he's too nonchalant and just too comfortable in that pace. He's got to pick up his pace. And so Rick Barnes mentioned that as well. And Rick Barnes even made the comment that kind of got some people talking around the league and around the country. He ran a play for Chaz Lanier, and then Chaz Lanier didn't shoot the shot that they called for on the play. And Barnes took him out. And he's like, in the post game, he said, I told him, this is what we pay you for, is to take those shots. So people are like, whoa, pay for? You're just not used to hearing that kind of direct language from NIL to performance, but it is the reality of today. People aren't making the decisions for this program based on NIL, but I think some would just, take it that's what they're doing. They're just throwing out money for performance in the way he phrased it. But they got to get Lanier going. That's for sure. And he's played well at home. So we'll see if it starts tonight against a top 25 Georgia team who hasn't been ranked since 2003. Rob, you were talking about teams getting better. You had 2 top 5 SEC teams lose on the road last night. Missouri got the road win, and Ole Miss won in Alabama. And now Georgia's where they haven't been. Mike White, the brother of Danny White, so there's that connections. Kid from Knoxville on that Georgia team in Blue Cane. So you got a lot of connections between these two. But you can't lose your home games, man, because it's hard. It's so hard to win on the road.
Yeah. Did I ever think I'd hear a coach say that's what we pay him to do?
Right.
No, but I thought that was a great comment because it is exactly what the deal is right now. In fact, here in Arkansas, that's become the rallying cry. It used to be he's not doing what we need him to do. Now it's, we're paying him to do this. Dale Davis should be knocking down shots because we're giving him $1 million or whatever, it is.
Dudley, I love the we, right?
Yeah.
Like, so those 99% of the people saying we.
They're buying chicken nuggets.
Well, you're talking about nonchalant. When you pay players in the professional leagues, I mean, they can be cut, traded, whatever. In college, I thought that was maybe AI when I heard that quote from Rick Barnes. Mm-hmm. And Brendan and I were talking yesterday. We're going to start doing some podcast segments on AI and its role in affecting the narrative in sports, because it's there. But yeah, he's not doing what we pay him to do. I mean, we knew in the past there was some shenanigans going on, but damn, Dudley, it just kind of blows my mind. Dudley, all right, switching gears. And I got to ask both of y'all this, because when I get two smart people together like this, Brendan and I are going to take advantage of your brains. The SEC officials will officiate the national championship game. Other folks around the country are all giddy because the SEC for the second year in a row is not in the big game. Does that bother you? I mean, if you were just a fan living out in Topeka, Kansas, and would that bother you that the SEC officials will officiate a game between two non-SEC schools?
It doesn't bother me at all. I mean, there are more things.
That's what I thought.
In the world. And my beautiful wife once broke up with me in high school because my self-esteem was too much for her. That's the word I'm going to use. Yes. And so my worth and all that's not tied into that. But I do think that it is interesting, since the SEC was down in football. We know it's up in basketball. It's just down in football. Suddenly this league's falling apart. Yep. That's become the narrative, please. I mean, I did a story yesterday about Arkansas softball team, and who's been really good over the years. And Coach Deifel does a great job here with it. But she said, "Oh, you're complaining about it being tough. We just expanded the lead, and we got number 1 and we got number 2 from last year into the league." So she says, "I see what it's all about now." But there are plenty of people. They haven't really gone after the refs so far. They've gone after the players for this 0-4 SEC start, but it's coming. It eventually will come. That's always the excuse.
Vince, what about you?
No, the reaction bothers me more than the fact that they haven't been there the last 2 years. And, at least we don't have an all Big Ten national championship.
Yes.
Because then, as much as the Big Ten fans are bragging right now, you can imagine the next level that they would be at if they could brag about doing something that the SEC has done multiple times. So, but still, there's no SEC there. I'm going to give, based on history, I'm going to give this league the benefit of the doubt that they are going to adjust and get back to power. They've earned that benefit of the doubt. And oh, by the way, it's not like no teams are even sniffing a national championship.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break. So they've been in the Final Four in each of the last 2 years that they haven't been there. They were so dominant for so long. No, is it a wave down? For sure. Does it mean that it's never going to get back? I'm not saying that. Now, look, parity throughout college athletics is real, but I'm going to give this league the benefit of the doubt that through whether it's collectives or adjusting their game plan or doing more. Here's another thing with the spread of players. What if now that once we go to the schools paying the players and doing more of that kind of stuff through the schools, can they find ways to spread the money out to your existing players, which is the original point of this thing, right? Mm-hmm. To reward the players that were sacrificing and doing so much and earning money for that school. It wasn't a pay for play type of setup, which has become, but maybe we have less movement in the portal, and maybe these SEC schools, once the money is going through them and everything they bring to the table, maybe you can limit players from leaving so you aren't impacted with your depth and then you can still cherry pick and bring in some stars to fill starting roles, and now you're back to the way you were. So that's just one example. But yeah, the SEC will adjust and whatever they can possibly do. And who knows, maybe rules favor the SEC. Maybe the SEC gets the guaranteed number of teams in the playoff. Maybe that's another way to up their chances to get in. Whatever the situation is, I think the SEC will respond.
Hey, Rob, another thing around here with portal and regular recruiting, is what I'll call it, from back in the day. Arkansas has now caught up portal-wise to the number of high school signees it has. And they got 2 tight ends this week, including the best one from junior college, obviously Luke Haas, who they really had a lot of hope for. It will now be catching passes at Ole Miss. But it's interesting in the makeup of the football team here. You now are going to have just as many portal additions as you are portal/junior college additions as you are high school freshmen coming in. Never thought I'd see that, but it is shopping. You're going to a shopping center. There may not be many malls around anymore, but there's still one out there in college football land, and everybody's dropping by Abercrombie and Fitch and Sears,
J. Crew,
and all that, and getting the tight end, getting the running back. It is. I feel sorry for my man Otis Kirk, who covers football recruiting for us for Hogville. That boy is run ragged. He needs a break.
Yeah, it is crazy. The Eggman, Dean Nelson, up on Crowley's Ridge, Arkansas. He's listening right now. I was like, he's from North Dakota. He loves this snow we get. He follows the Hogs. He married a Razorback. And he was asking me, he said, ask Dudley Dawson this question. He said, the state of Arkansas produces some players, not as many as Georgia or Texas, which it's obvious. Why are the Hogs struggling so much in state and doing better out of state? That's from the Eggman, Dean Nelson.
Well, just to be honest, a few slipped through the cracks to Missouri.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I really think that Eli Drakewich has been part of the problem / lie going out of state. For he says some interesting stuff sometimes, but he's a hell of a coach, and obviously he's a hell of a recruiter. Those have impacted Arkansas's team. Now, they did get Courtney Crutchfield, a wide receiver who signed with Missouri last year. He's going to be here this year. He's one of, I don't know, it seems like 17 wide receivers they signed after everybody got the door. But I do think that's a big part of it. You have to sign the vast majority, if not all, of the in-state talent you have here, because you don't have that much compared to other states. And when you go 4-8, when you go 7-6, they're not busting through the door to get here. Also, as we've talked about many times, I believe that Arkansas was behind Arkansas the state and Arkansas the school were both behind the NIL, the name, image, and likeness, getting set up for that, and have had to catch up and still are trying to catch up. I believe there's good people over there that are doing good things. But, man, if this started up, you needed to be 10-2, in the regular season. You didn't need to be middling, and they've been middling for most of these years.
Yeah. All right, guys, you're looking at SEC basketball compared nationally. The last few years, the Big 12's been really strong. Last year, we thought the SEC was the best, but it didn't turn that way. Alabama did get to the Final Four, but, there were some surprises in the tournament. Is the SEC better this year, hands down, than the rest of college basketball? And aside to that, when you say what happened to the ACC in basketball, the answer is the SEC. Vince?
Yeah, absolutely. And the challenge outlined that, and men and women, the SEC dominated, but definitely in the men. And look, the continued investment with NIL in basketball and just the overall programs, the coaching, and you have improved coaching across the board. So yeah, I think it is the SEC success is at the expense of the ACC in a big chunk. Nothing is ever absolute. There's always multiple reasons for it. But yeah, I agree with that. I do think the SEC is far and away the best conference in college basketball.
Yeah, Dudley.
Yeah, that's something I never thought I'd say. I always thought football has been the best. It's taken a step back, but the basketball has taken a step through that door, and obviously baseball and other sports. It's a wonderful league, and when you have a down year, your down year is there are the SEC led the nation. They led the nation in teams that should have been in the playoffs.
Yes.
Not that we're in it, but should.
Yeah.
So they were right there.
I like that stat.
Right there on the doorstep. So.
Yeah, that's a hell of a stat, Dudley. And look, I'm sitting there. Here we are. We're talking football, basketball, baseball. Next month cranks up. College baseball is very popular in the SEC.
10 a.m. press conference. 10 a.m.
softball, gymnastics. It's all going on.
Well, and I'm just look. We worry, football. Somebody will start spring practice by mid-February. So January 20th,
the
Vandy.
Yeah,
Vandy. Okay. Yeah. Missouri usually starts.
No, Brett, I'm telling you, Hawaii starts it in like February. I'm telling you.
Well, but in the SEC,
that's talking about football in general. At that point, I'm jonesing. I don't care. I'll watch some bows.
Yeah,
I wish Hawaii. I wish the SEC would expand to Hawaii, bring them.
Yes. I think if we're going to accept a school, like let's go to Hawaii. That'd be fine.
Hawaii and the Bahamas.
Hawaii, Bahamas. Can we get a ski school in there? I went to Colorado Mountain College in Steamboat my freshman year. I think we can probably get them. I think they got a football. I did go to Northern Colorado. Apparently, they have a football team now, but no one knows it.
I went to Arkansas both of my freshman years.
Yes, I did. I was redshirted twice.
Yes,
I took 6, man. Hey, all right.
5.
Last
school.
thing.
Who's counting?
Brendan and I got to ask both of y'all this thing before we go. And folks, this is cool. What's the story right now, Dudley, that we don't know about at Arkansas that people need to be paying attention to, or a story out there in college athletics that you're writing about or can tell us about?
Well, I was about to say, if it was a story at Arkansas that's not being reported, not being talked about enough, I'm not doing my job, and me and my cohorts are not doing my job. So I'm not going to tell them.
My apologies.
But I still
don't tell anybody that. Never say that again.
Thing out there right now, national wise, is not necessarily NIL. It's not necessarily portal. It is how many college head football coaches, how many college offensive coordinators and assistants are going to fly to the NFL because of the stuff that's going on in college now.
It depends on how much. Are they going to get Chip Kelly money or not?
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
That could be $6 million in 3 years. I don't know.
Let's see who from that national championship game is not coaching in college next year.
Let's see how many professional football players want to see if they have a year of eligibility left because they're going to make more money in college.
Yeah. I mean, Vince, again, that way I asked that question, but just something that you see going on, we better be paying attention to, because when the 10 o'clock news is over at 10:30, you've had 22 minutes of content, 8 minutes of commercials. That's not enough time to tell you everything going on.
Well, I think this isn't football or men's basketball. The two biggest discussion points are around here, but the job that Kim Caldwell has done in her first season as Lady Vols coach. Yes. And unfortunately, because football is year-round discussion and Tennessee men's basketball has been number one and they're next on the list, maybe Kim Caldwell hasn't got enough of the headlines. But, man, in her first season, Danny White was on with us this morning. He said she's ahead of schedule. But she said, I don't want to hear people saying, oh, you guys kept it close. And, a close loss to LSU and Oklahoma, 2 top 10 teams. But she doesn't want to hear anything about, moral victories or any of that kind of stuff. She's done an amazing job in turning this team around and making them relevant and good in a top 15 program where really they were underachieving for far too long.
Well, I bottom line is we'll wrap it up now. And I what I see happening in college is the fans in the SEC are not going to take it well Monday night watching other people wearing your clothes, kind of like it's almost like I can go in a lot of places with that, but it's
this is
not
Scary.
acceptable.
Say goodbye, Rob. Say goodbye.
It's not acceptable what's going on.
No
so
more
look,
talking about cross-dressing.
We're gonna say goodbye, but man, SEC pride is on the line. And I think they're going to double down and get it right. Hey, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed people in the greatest country in the history of the world, with the best guests like Jason Caldwell, Vince Ferrara, Dudley Dawson, and the best EP on the planet.
Dudley, I'll call you. We'll chat about all that other stuff, and we'll get it sorted out for next week. All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Got it.
Thanks, fans.
See y'all next week.
Yeah.
Have a great day, Brendan. I love that jacket. That is a cool Super Bowl 26 jacket. But
I'm a pretty cool dude with a pretty cool dad.
You remember Yertuk and Yordanovich, two wild and crazy guys. Hey, we're out of here. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Some really good ones. I got race cars up here now, so I got some race cars. I added some new items to the back scene. So, all right. Well, we'll talk to everybody tomorrow. Check out Buddy Martin Show tonight.
All right,
9:00.
See y'all. Take care.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.